Hello and welcome back to Movie Health Community, the internet's #1 source of health warnings at the movies. As always, please keep in mind that nothing produced by Movie Health Community is medical advice, nor has any of it been reviewed by any medical professionals. Today we're talking about All of Us Strangers, the new Oscar bait film starring Andrew Scott and Paul Mescal. Before we talk about whether this movie is any good, let's talk about if this movie's safe. The answer is an unfortunate no. This movie is not safe for photosensitive audiences. There is one sequence, maybe about 20 or 30 minutes into the movie, that takes place in multiple nightclubs. These nightclubs use extreme strobe lights. There is a little bit of warning that this is about to happen because when we first get to the first nightclub, it's using patterned lights. So projected lights that are moving across the people and the walls. But just be warned when you see that. There are about to be very extreme strobe lights. And during this sequence, there is actually one section of it that is safe to watch, but there's no audio cues to let you know that it's safe to watch. The only audio cue you're going to get that this sequence is over and that it's safe to watch is when the music actually ends and goes silent. That sequence is over, the extreme strobes are over at that point. There are multiple scenes of this movie that take place on moving trains. These are fast moving trains. We get the effect of trees and other trains and other landscape items passing by the train really rapidly in front of the sun that creates a bit of a strobe effect. That's another really common one that not only do we see in movies, but if you're traveling in any vehicle that goes 25 miles an hour or more, you've most likely experienced this particular type of strobe effect. For flashing lights, we are giving All of Us Strangers a 9 out of 10. We would go a little lower just because of how predictable the start and the end of the nightclub sequences are. But because we also have the added factor of these train scenes, we're giving it a 9 out of 10. In terms of camera motion, most of the camera work is really smooth. There are a few moments where the camera is handheld and just shaking a little bit. Then in terms of mental health, I'm about to describe something a little gross, but this is something that happens. There is some interaction with male reproductive fluid. There is cultural homophobia that is discussed quite frequently throughout this movie. There is one person who dies in a way that we're not entirely sure if it's an accident or if they died by suicide. That's left open to interpretation. It's very likely it could be one or the other. This entire film is a deep exploration of grief. So if you're not looking to explore grief, or you're trying to avoid things that do, I would avoid this movie. Now, is All of Us Strangers any good? I have really mixed feelings about this movie. I think this may have been the first time in my life that I've ever been emotionally touched by a movie that also bored me. There are long silences in this movie, some of them lasting several minutes at a time. There are quite a few stretches where very little happens, but there are also some really beautiful moments of this movie. The one scene that really spoke to me at an emotional level takes place in a diner. And so if you see this movie, you will know what I mean. It's probably the best scene that deals with this topic of grief. I loved that when we got to the first kiss between the romantic couple, it was the most realistically awkward first kiss I've ever seen in a movie. The opening shot of this movie is beautiful. But besides the fact that so much of this movie is slow and not an entertaining type of slow, the only other complaint I really have is there is a lot of whispering and mumbling. So if you have one of those hearing problems like me, where you need people to speak really clearly and really loudly, especially when there's background noise, you may want to ask the people at the front of your theater for a closed captioning device, or if you're fortunate enough, go to an open caption showing of the movie. I don't actually know what grade to give All of Us Strangers, because I love being affected emotionally, but at the same time, it's still kind of boring. So I think I'm just gonna go right into the middle and err just a little bit more on the positive side and give this movie a C+. Thank you so much to all of our readers on Tumblr and Facebook, and as always, an extra special thanks to our patrons over on our Patreon page, whose names are scrolling on the screen like credits right now. Be sure to leave a like on this video, hit that subscribe button, hit the bell icon if you want to be notified when we post new videos, and as always, stay safe at the movies.